The camera by my door caught the culprit smashing my mailbox. But the real shock wasn't who it was why they did it. And that truth hit harder than any crowbar. You ever wake up one morning and find your mailbox knocked sideways again? And instead of getting mad, you just sigh. Like it has happened so many times, your brain skips right past anger and lands straight in exhaustion. That was me last fall. It was the third time that month. First time, I figured maybe the garbage truck clipped it by accident. The second time, I blamed some bored teenagers with nothing better to do. But the third time, that one started to feel different. Too clean, too intentional. The post was cracked in the same exact spot as before, almost surgically. I stared at it for a minute that morning, coffee in hand, the steam mixing with my breath in the cold air, and I remember thinking, what the hell is going on here? I live on a quiet cul-de-sac in Michigan. Not some big city with heavy traffic, just a sleepy neighborhood where everyone waves at each other, whether they mean it or not. My name is Nate, by the way. I am 41, divorced, no kids, just me and an old black lab named Radar. We keep to ourselves mostly, but I know all my neighbors by face, if not by name. Or I thought I did. When the mailbox got hit the fourth time, this time clean off the wooden base and lying face up in my front yard like a dead fish, I went down to Home Depot and bought the reinforced metal kind. Bolted it into concrete, just to be sure. I remember joking with the guy at the counter about it. Told him, if this one gets hit, it will not be a car accident, it will be war. He laughed. I did not, because by that point, something felt off. This was not clumsy driving or mischief. It was deliberate. I could feel it in my bones, even if I did not have proof. Still, I tried to shake it off. Told myself maybe it was some freak coincidence. Maybe the plow trucks were turning too close during early snow. Maybe kids really were just screwing around, testing their strength, or whatever teenagers do these days when they are not glued to a screen. I even brought it up casually with a couple neighbors during a block barbecue, just to see if anyone else was having problems. Got a lot of head shakes and raised eyebrows, but no real answers. Everyone seemed surprised. Too surprised. Then came the night I heard the noise. Around 2 in the morning. A dull thump, like metal meeting rubber. Quick, then silence. Radar barked once from the hallway, but settled down quick, and I figured it was nothing. Maybe a branch, maybe a trash bin tipping in the wind. But the next morning, mailbox was leaning again. That was the last straw. I stood there, staring down at it. Not even angry anymore, just tired. Tired of guessing, tired of fixing it. And tired of feeling like someone was playing a game, and I was the only one who did not know the rules. That was the morning I decided to buy a camera. Just a little one. Motion activated. Nothing fancy. I installed it right above my door, angled perfectly toward the driveway and mailbox. You would barely notice it if you did not know where to look. I figured it would take a week, maybe 2, before I caught something useful. Maybe a shadow, a plate, a dumb teenager's hoodie, something. But what I caught made my stomach turn cold. And the worst part was, not that it was someone I knew. It was who. The camera was small, barely bigger than a deck of cards. I mounted it on a Saturday morning with a drill in one hand and a knot in my stomach I could not quite explain. Maybe I already knew something was coming. Or maybe I just did not want to admit it. I did not tell anyone. Not my buddies from work, not my neighbor Lou across the street who always asked about my lawn. I just kept it quiet. I figured if someone was messing with me, I wanted them to keep thinking they were getting away with it. The setup was simple. The camera would record whenever motion got picked up between midnight and 6 in the morning. I synced it to my phone, and every time something triggered the sensor, I would get a notification. That first night, I barely slept. Radar kept shifting around on the floor, probably sensing I was on edge. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, then the phone, then back again. Midnight came and went. 1 in the morning, then 2. Nothing. Just the usual creaks of an old house adjusting to the cool air. 3 days went by like that. No hits. Nothing suspicious. No late-night trucks. No kids on bikes. Not even a stray cat. I started to think maybe it had stopped on its own. Maybe the camera was enough of a scare to make whoever it was back off. But on the 5th night, my phone buzzed at 3:15 in the morning. I shot up like a firecracker had gone off. Heart thudding, I reached for the phone. The notification just read, motion detected, front driveway. I tapped the app and held my breath. The clip started out normal. Just the pale glow of the street lamp, the faint rustle of wind through the trees, and my driveway. Still, quiet, untouched. Then, out of the corner of the frame, movement. Someone was there. I leaned in closer. A figure stepped into view. Hooded. Slow, deliberate. Not a kid. Not some drunk college idiot stumbling through the wrong neighborhood. This person moved like they knew what they were doing. No hesitation. No glancing around. They walked right up to my mailbox. And then, they raised a crowbar. My blood ran cold. I could not see the face. Not yet, but something about the posture, the build, the calmness, it all felt familiar. Too familiar. The figure gave one swift hit, just enough to damage the hinge, and then walked away, disappearing into the shadows like it was just another part of their routine. I replayed it twice, then 3 more times. Each time, my hands got shakier. This was not random. This was personal. I sat there for a long while, the clip playing on a loop, Radar curled up beside me like he could feel something in the air. Part of me wanted to believe it was still some stranger, some ghost of a person I would never recognize. But deep down, a quiet voice in the back of my mind was already whispering the truth. And I hated what it was trying to say. The next night, I stayed up on purpose. Just me and the feed. And what I saw next shattered that last bit of doubt. That 6th night, I did not even try to sleep. I sat in my worn-out recliner with the lights off, holding my phone like it was some kind of lifeline. I had Radar next to me, his ears twitching every time the wind made the house groan. I kept checking the camera feed every 10 minutes, even though I had the alerts turned on. Around 3:30 in the morning, it happened again. Motion detected. I opened the live view, hands already damp with sweat. There they were, same posture, same hoodie, same damn crowbar. But this time, they stepped in closer, right into the glow of the porch light I had left on by accident. And that is when I saw the face. No mask. No effort to hide. Just calm, blank eyes and a jaw set like he had a job to do. It was Keith. Keith Dawson. My neighbor. The same guy who lent me jumper cables last winter when my truck died. The guy I waved to every Sunday while taking out the trash. The guy who offered me a beer last 4th of July while we watched fireworks from our driveways. I remember whispering the words, "You have got to be kidding me." Like saying them out loud might change what I was seeing. But there was no mistake. It was him. Keith looked older than usual in the footage, like something had been eating at him. His face was gaunt under the shadows. He did not even flinch as he lifted the crowbar and jammed it once into the corner of the box, just enough to bend the frame again. Then he stood there for a second. Just stood there, looking at the damage. And then he smiled. I swear to God, he smiled. Not a big grin. Just a flicker of satisfaction, like someone checking off a box on a to-do list. Then he turned and walked back the way he came. No rush. No panic. Like it was his lawn he had just trimmed or some casual late-night chore. I sat in the dark, stunned, mind racing, heart pounding in that dull, empty way you get when the betrayal is too fresh to make sense. Why? That was the word I kept coming back to. Why the hell would he do this? We had no beef. No arguments. Nothing more than casual neighbor talk. He had helped me shovel my driveway once. I had picked up his packages when he was out of town. He had even patted Radar on the head a few times and said, "Good boy." But now I had proof. Clear, undeniable footage. The mystery was over. And yet, I felt worse than before. Because knowing who it was did not make it easier. It made it personal. Now it was not about a broken mailbox. It was about something else entirely. And I had to figure out what that something was. Because people do not just snap like that without a reason. I watched that clip at least 20 more times before the sun came up. Every detail burned itself into my brain. The way Keith glanced up toward the house. The way his shoulders relaxed after the hit. The way he paused, like he wanted me to know. Like it was a message, not just an act. I did not go outside that morning. Did not check the mailbox. What was the point? I already knew what I would find. More dents, more damage, same story. Instead, I sat in my kitchen staring at my coffee like it had betrayed me too. I kept thinking back to every conversation I ever had with Keith, trying to find a clue, some sideways comment I had missed, something that could explain this. Nothing came to mind, and the more I tried to piece it together, the worse it felt. Eventually, I walked to the window, pulled back the curtain just enough to peek across the street. There he was, Keith, standing in his driveway, casual as ever, sipping from a travel mug while warming up his car. He looked right at my house like nothing was wrong. Like he had not been there 5 hours earlier, smashing my mailbox with a damn crowbar. That was when I knew I had to do more than just watch. I had to figure out why. I pulled out my laptop and started searching. Keith Dawson, 42, married, worked at a shipping yard 2 towns over. No priors, no online complaints, nothing to suggest he was the kind of guy who sneaks around at night and breaks things for fun. His social media was quiet. Family photos, a couple pics of fishing trips, a lot of posts about neighborhood stuff, lost dogs, garage sales, 4th of July block parties. One post stuck out. It was from 6 months ago, a neighborhood thread where someone complained about packages getting stolen. Keith had replied, "We need more cameras around here. People think they can get away with anything in this neighborhood." The irony nearly made me laugh. But then I saw something else. Buried way down in the comments, someone had replied to Keith's post, like how your neighbor always lets his dog crap in other yards. Keith replied, "You do not know the half of it." That hit me like a slap. Was this about radar? Could not be. I always picked up after him. Always. I even carried extra bags in my jacket pocket, just in case. But maybe Keith had convinced himself otherwise. Maybe he was one of those people who thought owning a dog was some kind of character flaw. Or maybe that was not what he meant at all. You do not know the half of it. That phrase stuck with me. Made me wonder what he thought he knew about me. And right then, another thought slid in, cold and sharp. What if this was not just about the mailbox? What if Keith was not trying to destroy something? What if he was trying to send a message? I spent the rest of the day in my head, just pacing, checking the footage again, thinking about Keith's comment online, replaying every possible reason he could have for doing what he did. And every time I came up blank, the anger started to bubble up again. It was not just the damage. It was the nerve. The smug, quiet way he sipped that coffee while standing 30 feet from the same mailbox he had crushed hours earlier. No guilt. No sign of conflict. Just another day in the neighborhood. I thought about marching over there right then, camera footage in hand, shoving it in his face and demanding answers. But something stopped me. Maybe it was radar, nudging my leg with that look that always meant breathe first, think later. Or maybe it was the tiny voice in my head saying this was bigger than just a broken box. So I waited. Watched the rest of the day go by. Watched Keith mow his lawn in the afternoon like he did every Saturday. Watched his wife bring out lemonade and hand it to him like they were living in some picture-perfect magazine ad. That night, I did not sleep either. The next morning, I decided to talk to someone first. Not Keith. Someone who might know something he would never tell me. Lou. Lou lives across the street and one house down. Retired. Old school. Wears a tool belt when he rakes his yard. He has lived in this neighborhood for over 20 years and knows everything that happens. I walked over and pretended to ask about sealant for my fence. He leaned against his garage wall and gave me a long look. "You ain't here for no damn fence, are you?" he said. I gave a half smile. You ever notice Keith acting weird? His eyes narrowed just slightly. Weird how? Like late night weird. Sneaking around. Anything strange lately? Lou sighed, crossed his arms, looked down at the ground for a second like he was choosing his next words very carefully. "I will tell you what I did notice," he said. "About 2 months back, Keith started asking folks about you. That made me freeze." "About me?" "Yeah, not in a bad way. Just questions. Asking what you did for work. If you were ever in the military. Stuff like that." I asked why, and he just shrugged, said he was curious. Curious? That word rattled around in my skull. I asked Lou if Keith had said anything else. He thought for a second, then added, "He asked me once if I thought you ever had people over at night." That one hit different. "What did you tell him?" I said, "What kind of dumb question is that?" Lou looked at me, serious now. "You okay, Nate? He do something?" I hesitated, then said, "Yeah, he has been wrecking my mailbox." Lou's mouth dropped open like I had told him the sky was falling. "You sure?" I pulled out my phone, showed him the clip. He watched the whole thing in silence, then looked up and said, "Well, hell." I nodded. "I'm going to talk to him," I said. Lou shook his head. "You sure that is smart?" Not even a little. But I had to do it anyway. Because what I had not told Lou was that I had already reviewed all the footage. And in one of those clips, Keith did not just look at the mailbox. He looked straight at my front window, like he knew I was watching. Like this whole time, he wanted me to. I waited until dusk. Not on purpose, it just felt right. That in-between time when the streetlights start humming and the world gets quiet enough to notice the things you usually miss. Keith was in his garage, working on something. I could hear the sound of metal scraping against concrete, slow and steady. The door was open. I walked across the street with my phone in my pocket, and every nerve in my body fired up like a live wire. He did not notice me at first. Or maybe he did and pretended not to. He was bent over his workbench, messing with a rusted lawnmower blade. When I stepped just past the driveway line, he finally looked up. I kept it simple. I know it was you. His hands paused for a beat. Then, calm as ever, he wiped them on a rag and turned to face me. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone and played the clip. No sound, just the image, him in the hoodie, walking up, crowbar in hand, taking his time. He stared at it for a full 5 seconds. Then he exhaled, slow and deep, like a man who had been waiting for this exact moment. I figured you had a camera by now, he said. That answer hit me sideways. You knew? He nodded. So why keep doing it? Keith leaned back against the workbench, folded his arms, and gave me a look that was not angry, but not sorry either. Because you needed to see me. That sentence knocked something loose in my chest. What the hell does that mean? He was quiet for a second. Then he said something I never expected. My sister. I blinked. What? Her name was Jenna. He paused, searching my face for any sign of recognition. I had none. She used to date a guy named Nate. About 10 years ago. He ghosted her out of nowhere. No calls, no closure. She ended up in the hospital a few months later. I felt a chill creep down my spine. I do not know anyone named Jenna. Keith nodded slowly. That is what I thought. But she remembered you. Said you had a scar on your hand. Left side, just below the thumb. I looked down at the scar I got fixing my old Jeep years ago. That stopped me cold. She described you, your truck, even your laugh. She talked about you like you were the one good thing she had. And when you disappeared, it wrecked her. I opened my mouth, then shut it again. I was trying to process what he was saying, trying to make it fit into the world I knew. But nothing made sense. I have never dated anyone named Jenna, I said, honest as I had ever been. I swear. Keith stared at me. Really stared, like he was peeling back the layers. I believe you, he said quietly. Now I do. I shook my head, still trying to make sense of it. So why all this? He looked down at the rag in his hand. Because back then, I did not believe her. I thought she was lying, making someone up. I told her to stop living in fantasy. She cried for weeks. Then she stopped talking about you altogether. He paused. Last year she passed. Cancer. I swallowed hard. She left behind a journal. I read it after the funeral. Your name, or the version she remembered, was in it over 100 times. And that scar was in 3 entries. Keith's eyes were glassy now, but he kept his voice steady. I thought maybe you were real. Maybe I owed it to her to find out. I looked at him, stunned. So you thought smashing my mailbox would do that? He gave a faint smile, sad, tired. I figured if you reacted, if you got angry, if you showed anything, maybe I could see if the man from her memories still existed. I stared at him, struggling to breathe through the weight of it all. She might have had the wrong guy, Keith. He nodded again. I know that now, but I had to be sure. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said something that stuck with me. Sometimes grief makes you desperate, makes you do stupid things, even to good people. I walked home in a daze. No yelling, no threats, no grand resolution. Just that quiet kind of pain that sneaks into your bones and stays there long after the door shuts behind you. Radar met me at the door, tail wagging like nothing had changed. I crouched down and rubbed behind his ears, trying to anchor myself, but my brain was spinning. Jenna. I kept turning the name over like a stone in my hand. I did not remember anyone by that name. Not from high school, not from college, not from any of the jobs I worked in my 20s. But then again, that stretch of time in my late 20s? It was foggy, really foggy. Back then, after the divorce, I had been a different person. Drifting, drinking more than I should have, sleeping on couches, keeping things casual with people because commitment felt like a landmine. I was hurting, and I covered it with bad habits and worse decisions. So now a part of me wondered, could I have met her? I booted up my old email archive, scrolled through inboxes I had not touched in years. There were names I barely recognized. A few vague flings, first names only, scattered between receipts and spam. No Jenna. Then I checked Facebook, typed in Jenna, and scrolled through every connection I had ever made. Nothing stood out. But just before I gave up, I clicked on an old group photo someone had tagged me in from a party in 2014. I was standing off to the side, drink in hand, eyes red from the flash. Next to me, someone whose face was familiar, but I could not place the name. I clicked the tag, Jenna W. No last name listed. No profile picture. Just a blank account. I clicked it anyway. The page was empty, deactivated probably, but there were 3 mutual friends. One of them was Brian, the guy who used to throw weekend barbecues at his parents' lake cabin. I had not talked to him in nearly a decade. I shot him a message on impulse. Hey, random question. Do you remember a girl named Jenna who used to hang around the lake cabin? Around 2014 maybe? He replied within 5 minutes. Jenna Weller? Yeah. Quiet, really sweet. Kind of artsy. Dated a guy named Nate for a bit, you? That last word punched the air out of my lungs. I sat back and stared at the screen. I had dated her. I just forgot. The memory cracked open like a floodgate. It was fuzzy, but pieces rushed in. Her red scarf. The sketchpad. The way she used to hum to herself while looking out over the lake. She had been kind. Too kind, probably, for the mess I was back then. And yeah, I ghosted her. I never called. Never explained. I just stopped showing up, assuming she would be fine. I thought I had buried all those mistakes in the past. Turns out they were just waiting for me to circle back. Keith had not been wrong. I had been that guy. Even if I did not remember her at first, she remembered me. And she never stopped carrying it. I sat in that chair for hours after the memory came back. Barely moved. Just kept staring at the same line in Brian's message. You? Yeah, it was me. No more doubt. No more pretending I could chalk this up to coincidence or mistaken identity. I had been the guy Jenna remembered. The one who showed up, made her feel seen, then vanished like she never mattered. And now she was gone. That was the part one could not get past. She never got the closure. Never got the apology. Just silence. And in her silence, she turned me into someone else. Someone better than I actually was. Maybe that was how she coped. Maybe Keith never understood that part. But I did. Because I had spent most of my 30s trying to forget who I used to be. And here it was, dragging me back anyway. I could not change what I had done, or who I had hurt, but I could stop pretending like none of it mattered. I pulled up the footage of Keith again. Watched it one more time, not to be angry, but to understand. Every time he lifted that crowbar, I saw something else now. Not hate, not revenge, grief. The kind that makes you lash out because you have nowhere left to place the pain. That night, I wrote something. Not a message, not a text, not a Facebook post. A letter. 1 page. I wrote it to Jenna. I told her I was sorry. That I remembered her now. That I had been a coward back then, too wrapped up in my own hurt to realize I was hurting someone else. I told her I did not expect forgiveness. Not from her, and not from the brother who had carried her memory like armor. And then I printed it out, folded it, and put it in an envelope. The next morning, I walked across the street. Keith was sitting on his porch, sipping from the same travel mug, wearing the same unreadable expression. I held the envelope out. He looked at it. Looked at me. What's this? He asked. For Jenna, I said. He took it without a word. Just nodded once. There was something behind his eyes, maybe confusion, maybe gratitude. I did not push. I turned to leave, but before I stepped off the porch, I said one more thing. I forgot her. I live with that now. But I'm trying to be better than the man she remembered. Keith said nothing. Just sat there holding the letter, staring down at it like it weighed 100 pounds. I never asked if he read it. I never will. But the next night, the camera stayed quiet. And for the first time in weeks, my mailbox was untouched. The next few days passed in this strange kind of quiet. Not the kind where nothing happens, but the kind where something did happen. And now the air feels heavier because of it. I stopped checking the camera every hour. I let myself breathe a little. Even Radar seemed more relaxed, curling up by the window like he could feel the tension had lifted. The neighborhood went back to its usual rhythm. Sprinklers in the morning, lawnmowers in the afternoon, porch lights flicking on at dusk. Keith and I did not speak again, but he waved once. Just a small, tired wave while taking his trash bins out. I nodded back. That was enough. The damage to the mailbox? I left it. Bent, scraped, chipped paint and all. Not because I could not fix it, but because it meant something now. It was not just a broken box anymore. It was a scar. And scars, in their own way, are proof that healing started. On the 5th day, something new happened. I stepped outside in the morning like I always do, coffee in hand, Radar sniffing the bushes, and saw a small package resting at the foot of the mailbox. No shipping label. No postage. just my name on the front. I looked around. Street was empty. No cars pulling away. No footsteps in the snow. Just cold air and quiet. I picked it up and carried it inside, setting it gently on the kitchen table. It was light, not sealed. I opened it carefully. Inside was a small sketchbook. Brown leather cover, slightly worn, pages yellowed at the edges. Tucked into the front was a folded note. It read, "She never stopped drawing." These were the last ones she made before she got too sick to hold a pencil. I thought you should see what she saw. There was no signature, but I knew who it was from. I opened the book, slowly turning page after page. And there I was. Not clearly, not like a portrait, but I was there. Sketches of the lake, a cabin porch, the back of a man sitting beside her on a railing, laughing. A scar on his left hand. A dog I did not recognize, but somehow felt familiar. A drawing of a single hand offering coffee. A page filled with stars over water, and beside them, a caption in her handwriting. He made me feel less small. I stared at that one for a long time. Because that was the thing about memories. Sometimes they survive even when we try to bury them. Sometimes, the people we forget never forget us. And sometimes, the quietest chapters of our lives are the ones that echo the loudest. I kept that sketchbook on my nightstand. Not because I needed to look at it every day, but because just knowing it was there changed something in me. It was like proof that my life had touched someone else's in a way I never really understood until it was too late. For a while, I kept waiting for Keith to come talk to me again. Maybe ask if I had read it. Maybe say something about the letter. But he never did. He did not have to. We had already said everything without needing to say it again. The mailbox? Still bent. Still chipped. Still standing. I thought about replacing it more than once. Even had a new one in the garage, still in the box, sitting behind a shelf of old tools. But every time I walked past it, I just kept walking. Because that mailbox told a story now. One of pain and confusion and memory. One that started with frustration but ended with something I never expected, understanding. The truth is, it was never really about the mailbox. That was just the surface. The real damage, the thing that stuck with me long after the metal was dented, was trust. See, when you live in a place long enough, you start believing you know the people around you. You wave to them. You borrow sugar. You water their plants when they go out of town. You build this illusion of community, of connection. But sometimes, the people you think are waving with you are really watching, judging, blaming you for things you forgot you did, or worse, things you actually did, but tried to forget. That is what hit me the hardest. Not just that Keith had done it, but that I gave him a reason to. I had spent years trying to be a better man. The kind of person who shows up, who listens, who picks up after his dog and tips the pizza guy and never ghosts anyone. But I was not always that guy. And maybe I still wasn't. The sketchbook reminded me of that. That even if you leave someone behind, you never leave them empty. You leave a mark, good or bad. And sometimes, if you are lucky, the world gives you a chance to come back and face it. I do not know what Keith will do with my letter. I do not know if he forgives me. I do not even know if I deserve it. But I do know this. The next time someone damages something you thought was solid, whether it is your property, your peace, or your pride, do not just look at the mess. Look deeper, because sometimes the thing that gets broken is not the mailbox. It is the memory of who we were to someone. And that kind of damage, that never shows up on camera.